I know you're gonna dig this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Funk Chronicles. I'm your host, Dr. Turk Logan from Logan Communications and the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center. And you know, over the many years, I've talked to many artists from A to Z. But this young man that I'm getting ready to talk to is so special because he's been involved with a legendary group, the Isley Brothers, and I'm talking about Mr. Jasper. Chris, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Hey man,
Very good.
I have admired your music and your work for more than 40 years, so you know that you have made an impact on this old disc jockey that's now owner of a radio station and still playing your music. You wrote one of the greatest songs of our time called For the Love of You. Tell me how you conceived that particular song.
Well, it was, I got it through practicing really, just going over to the piano, playing some chords, and then I got the B section. I kind of worked it out in stages, and then the melody came to me next, which was a natural kind of melody for me to sing, and then we started working on the lyrics, me and Ernie. So it was. It just came to me in stages.
Well, I tell you, that song today still sends tingles up my spine. I still love that song, and my wife and I listen to it, and I tell you, it had a lot of growth for the population during that time of it in the 70s. Chris, how'd you end up with the Isley Brothers?
We kind of, the two families kind of started out together, actually. We were in Cincinnati. We were all born in Cincinnati, and the Lincoln Heights area, actually. And the two families lived, very close to each other, a few doors from each other, actually. And after a while, my sister Elaine married Rudolph Isley, one of the older fellas. And at that point, the families even got closer together. So, that's how things started. But after a while, the three of us younger guys, me, Ernie, and Marvin, formed a trio when I was in like junior high school and high school. And, we started to play around the local areas in New Jersey when everybody moved to New Jersey. And, the better we got, the more they wanted us to play with them, and that's kind of how that happened.
Well, I worked at a big 50,000 watt FM station in Dayton, Ohio called WDAO FM when you were in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I was music director and then program director. And every time you guys came out with a song, we made sure that we were right on top of it. And then you moved over time to where was it? Teaneck, New Jersey?
Yeah, that's where the older brothers moved to Teaneck. Yeah.
Okay, and I remember because I've always followed you guys. Tell me about some of the other songs that you wrote for the Isley Brothers.
Oh man, well the first one I wrote was "Love Put Me on the Corner." That was the first one, and then "Highways of My Life," "Lover's Eve," of course "For the Love of You," "The Heat Is On," "I Once Had Your Love," "Can't Let It Go," "Showdown."
How about Fight the Power?
The Fight the Power, yeah, we kind of co-wrote that with Ernie, but I was just naming the ones that I wrote by myself, but there's a lot more that I wrote by myself.
Well, one thing about your music it seems like it's always new. It doesn't seem like it seems like it's ageless. So whatever you do when you write and communicate to your audience, there's no age on. Just like I said, For the Love of You and other songs. And just like on my little radio station today, I'm still playing that particular song, Footsteps in the Dark, and Twist and Shout, Fight the Power. It's just like music today. Are you still performing, or what is Chris Jasper doing today?
Well, I have my current album out is called The One. Okay. And the new single from there is called Kiss Me. So that's what I'm working on now and promoting right now. Okay,
we want to get a copy of that so we can continue to do what we've done with you and the Isley Brothers and start the promotion on it in our global radio station, which is worldwide because it's an internet station, to make sure that my audience is aware of what you're doing. So we'll talk about that at some point in time. We are on a mission here in Dayton, Ohio. You're in New York. To build a Funk Center, the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center, to honor not just the Dayton artists that came out of Dayton, Ohio, not just the artists that came out of Cincinnati, Ohio, but artists that are worldwide that have created funk music. Give me your take on that.
On funk music?
Yes.
Yeah, I that's part of the, what I grew up on. I grew up studying classical music at first, but then some of my main influences, were people like Ray Charles, Sam Cooke, Marvin Gaye, but then the other influences were like, Sly Stone, and James Brown, So I grew up with a kind of diverse musical influence, and funk was one of them. And I was always drawn to R&B and funk the most. Why, I don't know, but it's something that was in me. When you have natural rhythm I think that's attractive. The funk is, because you have to have rhythm in order to play funk, and it's just something that I was drawn to.
Well, that's probably a key point that you just made. You have to have rhythm to play funk. And I remember back in the 70s, a young man by the name of Junie Morrison, who played with the Ohio Players, brought me a song called Pain. And if you remember the riff of that particular song, it wasn't nothing but clear funk. And then one of the first songs that I remember, and I don't know how you were involved or if you were involved in it at the time, was a song called Twist and Shout. And
that was up for me.
But you guys performed that when you were on the road, correct?
Sometimes we would do it, yeah. But when I got involved, and when Ernie and Marvin got involved, we did. Maybe, sometimes we would do the older stuff, but most of the show was about what we were doing currently,
What do you encourage, or how do you encourage, and I know you probably have over the years, young people to get involved in the business? What do you tell them when they say, I want to be like a Chris Jasper, or I want to write music, or I want to write, play, and sing? And I know you've had that experience. How do you coach them?
Well, if they say they want to be like Chris Jasper, I would say, be ready to work. Be ready to work hard, because that's all I did. When I was coming up, I studied music classically, learned so much about how composers wrote and put their pieces together, the themes they would use, the chord structures they would use. That's what helped me with my songwriting. So I would say the more you can know about music, the better you're going to be. The more you're going to be able to offer, because a songwriter or a composer can only offer what they have inside of them. And the more you have to offer. And I think the better your music can be. So that's first thing. And then the second thing, you have to be, kind of tough, character-wise. You have to be able to take criticism. You have to be able to be persistent, because everything you do won't work like you think, you know. So you have to be willing to go back to the drawing board and keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. That perseverance is very, very important. And also, I would say know something about the business end of music, because that's where most people, you know, run into problems.
Well, I've seen it happen over the years because, as you're aware, Ohio players, Roger, Lakeside, Heatwave, Dayton, Sun, Shadow, Slave, Phaso, all these guys fell under my preview during my tenure at WDAO FM from Dayton, Ohio, and all of them are personal friends, and all of us, some of us went to grade school together, some of us went to high school together, and a few of us went to college together. But one of the things I noticed that many of them did not understand or pick up on, and this is where the education comes in, is the business of show business. And you know, you can make a terrible mistake if you don't understand the business of it. You think?
That's right. Yeah, and it comes from usually the first contract you sign. You know, you have to either be aware of what's in contracts or have someone that you trust that does know, you know, what you're giving up. You know, what your obligations are, because that's where the pitfalls happen. Is usually in the first deal that a person signs. Sometimes people learn lessons from that, and if they're fortunate enough, you know, that their career is longer, you know, sometimes they can correct some mistakes that they made initially. But sometimes people's career doesn't last that long, and that initial mistake can just end their career. So.
And I've seen it happen time and time again because, like you said, and like I'm sure you're aware, and like I'm sure you've been involved in, when you sign a record company, a record contract, if you don't read the contract, those contracts have provisions of them in them sometimes. I don't know where it is today. I haven't been directly involved in it, to where they self-renew themselves. They automatically renew themselves for X number of years. And if in the event that, you know, I'm not going to mention any particular group, but in the event that you're unhappy with your record label, like so many artists have been, and you walk away from that record label, you could still be under contract with them, correct?
Yeah, well, they're written for the advantage of the company. In other words, the company usually will have options on picking that group up for another album, and they have the option to do it, and you have to wait until they waive that option, you know, before you can sign with another record company. Sometimes they'll just drop a group altogether, and that'll be the end of it. And then that group is, you know, have to search for another deal. But that's just one of the provisions. The other provisions is, you know, copyright issues, you know, and I think that's the one that gets most artists in the most trouble, is copyright issues. If they're songwriters, or if they're just recording artists, there's copyrights that you're giving up. And you have to know what they are, and you have to know if you can negotiate on those issues. You know, there just shouldn't be things that you just say, well, you know, they're boilerplate. There's nothing boilerplate in any contract.
There you go.
You know, everything can be negotiated. So it takes a little study. I mean, you know, it took me a while to understand, you know, contracts. I even went back to law school and got my degree, you know, because I wanted to know more about contracts and things like that, because that's where, like I said, a lot of people run into trouble, and it hurts their career.
Well, you know, that's so important, the educational piece, because we had talked about it, and you said yourself you went back to law school so you could, and you're a super writer, you're a legendary writer, you're a legendary musician, but you want to know more about this business of music, so you went back to law school and got your degree. There are three key components in what it is that you do. One component is you create the music, however you do it, You write, you play, you get the melody, then you take that to a record label. The record label sends that to a pressing plant, gets that song done, and you have an album. And then I get it, as a radio personality or a programmer. So you've got yourself, the record company, and the radio personality. And then the radio personality thinks, he or she may think they know more about your music than you do, but we don't. But we don't because it's your music. But then they may say, well, we want this particular song played, and I might listen to it and say, well, I'm gonna play this particular song because this fits what it is. So, and I'm sure you've experienced that before.
That happens, yeah. That happened a lot. We thought. We say, okay, play this single, and then they would play it. But then when they got the album, they play other songs out of them too. Yeah. The song you mentioned, you started off with "For the Love of You" was like that. "Fight the Power" was a big hit. It was #1 and everything. But when that album dropped shortly after, a lot of the program directors went right on "For the Love of You."
There you go. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. What can we expect from your latest album? Can we expect some of that same flavor that you've had in the past, or is this kind of new, something different, or what?
Well, some of the people who have reviewed it has said it sounds like the Isley Brothers without their other brothers.
Okay.
It's the sound, man. It's the sound that I've done all my life, and I think a lot of people are becoming aware of how much I was involved in the creation of that music. After hearing this album, The One, you can hear it. You can just hear where the music came from and how much I played on those records. I played guitar and bass on a lot of songs on the Isley Brothers records. Okay. That are just coming to light with this box set that's coming out. Because before, when we would put out a record, they knew I played keyboards, they knew Marvin played bass, they knew Ernie played guitar. So that's how they would list everything. But in actuality, in the studio, I played guitar on some records, I played bass on some records, on some songs. And that's being clarified with the box set, finally.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Mr. Chris Jasper, formerly of the world famous Isley Brothers and musician extraordinaire, writer, producer, artist. Chris, are you going to be performing on the road with your new CD coming out?
I'm just having some conversations this week about doing some personal appearances. So I will be. I just don't know exactly when. But,
okay, well, good.
Yeah, I'm having those discussions.
Well, good. We hope that things work out, and we hope your new product is just as successful as some of the, and I'm sure it will be because you've got that magic touch. Some of the previous songs. Beside the new album, are you working with any other artists and helping any other artists get their careers off the ground?
Well, I'm working with my son, Michael. He's working on a project. That's the thing I'm working on right now. But I'm over the past several years, I've been just working on my solo project. So I don't know if that arises. I will work with other people if there's something I want to work on. Okay.
Well, that's good. Do you see in your son, is he like a chip off the old block?
He's got that natural rhythm that I spoke about. Okay. And I think that is so important when you're trying to write music and you're trying to play music. That's, to me, that's like the first thing that I would look for is a person. Do you have rhythm, especially if you're trying to play R&B and funk? You've got to be a person with rhythm.
Okay. Well, we want, and I'm going to mention to Mr. David Webb to get your new product again so we can check it out and hopefully it has the same feel as the music has always over the last 40 years. The Funk Center is going to be a very, very special piece for Dayton, Ohio. We've got so many people involved in it. We want to tell the audience out there about our donation website, www.daytonfunkhall.com, and encourage people to make a small donation, because we are 501c3. We are a nonprofit and tax deductible corporation. So please keep us informed what you are doing, and this is so important that we talk to the artists and see where the artists are, because many of the artists out of Dayton, Ohio, and many of the artists today are still performing, and just like yourself, after what, 40 plus years?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and far as the new music, you know, the one and all of my other albums, I have like 11 other solo albums, and you can go to chrisjasper.com and check out all of those albums and CDs, you know. There's a lot of music there, and I'm sure you'll find it, you know, right in those same grooves, you know, that, like I said, I've been doing all my life.
like I said, I have always admired your work and your performance and your music, and this has been such an honor to get a chance to finally talk to you. I saw a picture and you had that funk music T-shirt on.
Oh yeah, yeah. I took a picture with it in my studio workshop here, you know, and yeah, that's I'm really hoping that it's gonna, you know, be a great thing, because you know, funk is a very important part of American history. I truly believe that, and it came from America, you know, and it's something that, you know, people should, you know, be able to recognize and study and appreciate.
Well, we're taking ownership here in Dayton, Ohio, and it's people like you that show support and continue doing what you're doing, and you're supporting us, and we're definitely going to support you. Chris, it's been such an honor to talk to you, and I hope at some point in time that you can come back to us and chat with us again as we take this vision and this dream and make it brick and mortar.
All right, man, I appreciate it very much, and just a shout out to all the fans too, and a big thank you to them, because over the years, you know, they've been fantastic. So I'd just like to thank them.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with legendary musician, writer extraordinaire, performer, Mr. Chris Jasper of the legendary Isley Brothers. And I'm Dr. Turk Logan from the Funk Chronicles and Logan Communication and the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center. Hope you enjoyed the program. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.